Hey guys, this is Yoda. This will be my tech overview for Priory of the Sacred Flame. There are a lot of techie things you can do in this dungeon that are very specific and can completely change how the dungeon plays out for you. So the first thing we're going to show is how to not get knocked back by guard Captain Sullean. So this guy has a big tank buster called Shield Slam, and if you are not like against the wall, if your back's not to a wall, then he basically knocks you like across the whole world, which is really annoying for a lot of tanks because then the pack gets scattered, and then if the pack is scattered, it takes forever to die. Then you're also doing like a really freaking big pull, so if it takes forever to die, then you're probably gonna die. So this tech is pretty useful. So the biggest thing is you can see I'm purposefully tanking him so that he is off the fountain. So you can see how this fountain has like 3 or 4 steps here. You want to be on the first step, and you have Sullean downstairs off the fountain completely. As you can see, I've dragged him all the way, like just to the edge of the fountain here on the bottom, like below the bottom step. I position myself on the next step. Then you can see I walk forward a bit, and then the knockback doesn't knock me back. It just knocks me into the stair, and that's it. Now I can just tank him here forever. I never have to move. If I move, it's so like these random footmen are hitting me back, or if I dodge caltrops. Ideally, you just sit here, you tank him, and you never move, and he won't knock you back. Now, obviously, as a demon hunter, this is not super necessary because you can just like glide or self jump it. It is a little bit not ideal because the mobs move a bit, but as a demon hunter, if you don't want to risk it, you can just like tank him facing this way or something. Also of note in this pull, another reason it's really good to stand super still the entire time, these sharpshooters are coded so that they can only cast pot shot on mobs in front of them. So they have 180-degree field of vision. If the mob is in front of that 180 degrees, they're eligible for pot shot. If not, then they will not cast pot shot on the person. So if everyone is behind them, they will pot shot the tank, which is, you know, kind of good if everyone else is taking damage. Also, somewhat worth noting is these footmen can only cast defend when they're below a certain amount of health. I think it's like 50%. But I don't really consider that tech. That's just knowledge. All right, so that's the first tech. Next, we're going to talk about, we're not going to talk about this mini boss. There's not really much other than just dodge. This mini boss. So there is actually massive tech with High Priest Amia that was recently discovered on the Chinese server. First thing, you know, very minor. You can pull these footmen by just face pulling them. These, you just tag this close footman here, and then the other one will come running. As you can see here, I am intentionally not pulling High Priest Amia. That is because if while this mob is unpulled, she will like do some RP sequence, and part of that RP sequence is casting inner fire on the mobs. If you wait until immediately when she starts that cast to pull her, she will only cast Refractive Shield one time in the entire fight. No one knows why that's true, but it has something to do with the RP sequence, and I'm gonna do it here in this VOD. So we're just chilling here waiting. This is kind of a unlucky timing, I think, but it's still worth it in my opinion. We're literally sitting here AFK like fucking 30 seconds so far. Here we go. She's casting Inner Fire, and I'm gonna go and pull her immediately. I think if I was being smart, I would have Elysian the Creed here for aggro before going, but anyway, by tag. This looks like I'm about to cheat here because I didn't really use the proper buttons. I probably should have darknessed. Yeah, I cheat. I played this kind of incorrectly, so I should have darknessed here, but it doesn't really matter for the tech. As you can see, she cast Reflective Shield already, and she's not going to cast it again until she dies. So it's the pull timing. You have to pull her while she's casting Inner Fire, and she won't cast Reflective Shield until she dies, which is a massive time game because, you know, if she does not casting shield, then she's not doing damage to anyone. Your DK is not one-shotting himself with Blood is Life. And above all, she's just not gaining health throughout the fight. Next tech. This is a very techy dungeon. There's a lot that goes on. A lot of things you can do. There's not too much tech here. I mean, you can just like taunt one of the light spawns away, so this burst of light is easier to manage, but it's not really techy. That's just taunting. This boss, I'm not going to go over too much. Just have a cooldown running, etc. Not really the topic of this video. This area, not really the topic either. Just live forehead. Oh, we actually kind of failed. But okay, the next tech, Baron Bronpike. So the next tech that was discovered is this Castigator's Shield. I think we're failing it here. Okay, we're not failing. So if you pay attention to where we're all positioned, he can only cast Castigator's Shield if a person that is not the tank is in front of him. So he has 180 degrees of field of vision. So when this comes off cooldown, as you can see, it's up in 0.2 seconds. If the tank is the only person in front of Baron Bronpike, he will not cast Castigator Shield. The boom, as you can see, I don't know exactly what his field vision is, but I'm here and the whole rest of my group is like kind of behind him. He's supposed to cast Castigator Shield. He doesn't cast it. We go in. The Freedom, we thought Freedom also worked in this way, but it doesn't actually work that way. So here again, this is actually the test we did for Freedom. So I'm Freedom, he cast, but he does still cast Castigator Shield. So it looks like the facing is going to be the crucial part. I think we're testing it again here. I try to like, there's like a much more efficient way to do this movement, but I try to like face him away again. As you can see, he's facing me. I'm facing him outside. The rest of my group is inside. As a result, Castigator Shield gets skipped, and then we bring him over to the soak. So that is another tech for this dungeon. Baron Bronpike basically cannot cast Castigator Shield if the tank is the only person in front of him. And I believe that is it for the full tech. I mean, there is obviously some other tech, but that's mostly what I wanted to share in this video. In this area, there are some undeads. Obviously, they do damage when they die. You can stun them. I guess that's quote-unquote tech. Actually, there is one more thing. There is one more thing we wanted to show. I need to go further in the VOD. So this is when we actually time the key. With a pretty good timer, I might add. So, Prioress Murrpray, 2 abilities here that are dangerous for the group. One is Inner Light, Inner Fire, and one is Blinding Light. It is much, much easier for the healer if Blinding Light is cast when the boss is not buffed by Inner Fire. So how do we arrange for that? Well, one thing to note is that Blinding Light respects the lockout, Inner Fire does not. So what does that mean? That means when Blinding Light is off cooldown, when Bigwigs says Prioress Murrpray is going to cast Blinding Light, if she's locked out, if you have recently kicked Holy Smite, then she will not cast Blinding Light. She will delay that cast and then cast it again when the lockout is over. Right now, we don't need to kick. Right now, Blinding Light is happening before Inner Fire naturally, so we're not going to interrupt at all. If we interrupt Blinding Light, then what's going to happen is that we kick like right here, 1 second left, and then 2 seconds later, she's still locked out. She can't cast Blinding Light. Instead, she's going to cast Inner Fire. And then while Inner Fire is active, she's going to be like, oh, I'm not locked out anymore. Now I can cast Blinding Light. And she's going to cast Blinding Light while the group has Inner Fire on them, which is what we want to avoid. So we're just going to not interrupt at all. And then she's going to cast Blinding Light, boom, and then Inner Fire. So someone discovered that if you never interrupt the boss, this is just her natural queuing and how it always ends up. As you can see, her next Blinding Light is happening in 13 seconds and Inner Fire is happening 1 second after that. So if you literally never kick or you only kick after Inner Fire, which is kind of risky, then you can get this to happen basically just like naturally. You don't have to force it. If it ever becomes off sync, then you would need to use lockouts to make Blinding Light happen, to like manipulate these timers. So for instance, let's say these were reversed, right? Let's say Inner Fire was happening and then Blinding Light was happening. In that situation, you would want to interrupt right before the Inner Fire so that she delays the Blinding Light as long as possible, and you would want the mage to interrupt because mage has longer lockout. So we're not going to go over that too much here, but basically P1, just don't kick and it should line up perfectly. If it doesn't line up, then you may need to like look at some Bigwigs timers and try to kick to line it up. Also worth noting, Inner Fire does not show by default in Bigwigs. It default only shows for healers, so if you want to manipulate this properly, you may need to display that. We'll get upstairs here. This is a pretty good example. So the boss is casting Inner Fire and Blinding Light is happening 3 seconds later. Don't think we're going to be able to fix this here because she's going to cast Inner Fire and immediately after she's going to cast Blinding Light, right? So there's no counterplay here. This is always going to happen. So now that we know that this is the cycle the boss is on, you know, Inner Fire and Blinding Light basically have the same cooldown. So what we need to do to fix this is to interrupt like very late. I think the next cast, this cast right here, we should interrupt very late with the mage interrupt. I think I was calling it, but mage is like, you know, not really paying attention, so we don't get the interrupt here. If he interrupts late here, or perhaps on the next one, if there is a next one, then we would delay the Blinding Light cast until Inner Fire is actually over, or we delay it like a little bit, and then the next time we would delay it enough so that it lands outside the Inner Fire. This P2 like spell queuing manipulation is not that easy to do and sometimes not even possible. But basically, in P1, if you never interrupt, then Blinding Light will pretty much never line up with Inner Fire, which makes the fight immensely easier. All right, that will be it for the Priory Tech video. Thank you all for watching. Peace out.